Hi everyone, and welcome to episode 36 of Not the Worsted Knitting Podcast. My name is Michelle, and I am the knitter and knitwear designer behind meeshyfrazz Knits. In today's episode, you might notice that we are in my new studio space. If you watched me last week, then you saw all about my studio updates, everything I did to the space, and all the changes that were made. And so naturally, I have not wanted to be anywhere else but this space. I have been in here every day as much as I can. And so I really kind of wanted to try filming in here. I don't know if I will always film in here. The lighting is tricky in terms of where I can film. My windows are right here. And so this really is kind of the best lighting for me. I'd love to film in front of my yarn cabinets, which I'm looking at, but the lighting there is actually kind of dreadful. Like it comes in at the side, and then there's also like no light on the other side, and then there's a glare on the glass from other windows. So it's tricky, and I just don't know if that's really the best spot to film. But this seemed okay. You can kind of see my swatches over here. And I guess, I don't know, hopefully it's not like too chaotic in the background. You'll see I strategically put my mannequin right here. Because these are my mirrored closet doors, and without something there, the reflection of the back of my head was right here, and it was really distracting me. So I needed to cover that up. And I feel like this actually does a pretty good job, and it's not too far off from where it normally is compared to where I sit. So we're trying some things out. We're gonna see how it goes. I also brought my my precious yarn bowl with me that's got all my little mini skeins of yarn because he has to travel with me wherever I film, and it only seemed right that he would make an appearance. But you might see I am at my L desk, so it's really nice actually being here because I've got all my projects just kind of scattered on my desk. I've got my laptop over here with some of the notes I need, so I didn't really need to write like crazy show notes. Which is a nice change. So we're gonna try this out and we're gonna see what we think. Also, I am in a swivel chair, so I'm gonna try not to swivel too much, but no guarantees. And also the green chair is right here, which Bagel loves to like, I don't know, he loves to kind of like kick his little feet. Here, I'm gonna actually, we gotta show that. Hey buddy, what are you doing? Yeah? Yeah? Oh my goodness. Okay, anyway, I know we could do an entire video about how cute Bagel is. Okay, I'm back. We had a little Bagel interlude, but now we're back, and I've tried to set it back up to the closest it's been. I'm also using a much smaller tripod, if you will. It's like a gorilla pod, so it's light and I can move it around, but it's really difficult to kind of get back in the position where I was. So sorry if there's like a little bit of wonkiness in this. I'm just trying to figure out the best angles and the locations and backgrounds and all of that good stuff. So let me know what you think too, like if you prefer the other space I was in. I don't know. Anyway, so back to my projects. This is gonna be a rambly one, I think. I don't have any new projects from last time, but I do have more progress on all of that, as well as a couple more samples. So I will chat about that. Before I get into that though, I will talk about what I am wearing. I talked about this in my most and least worn, was it my most and least worn cozy winter knits video? I think that's the video where I first shared this. This is my Felix Pullover by Christoffers, and this is a top-down raglan in kind of a bulky weight yarn. I don't know, I think the pattern might have called for worsted weight, and I used maybe a slightly, like, I think this is technically an Aran weight. This is a Studio Donegal Soft Donegal in the colorway Barfight, which is a really pretty purple with like flecks of different bright colors in it. I absolutely love the yarn. It's really beautiful. I don't wear this sweater a ton because the yarn is a little bit, I'm warm, like I am quite warm in this. It's a very steamy sweater, and the sleeves are a little bit on the tighter side. I just wish that maybe I had knit this at a looser gauge. Like the body fits nicely, but I wish the sleeves were a little bit looser. Just because it does kind of make me quite warm, and with the chunkier knit, I don't grab for it as much just for those reasons. But I do like it. I love the color, and I would like to wear it more, especially on these colder days. It is pretty chilly today here in Washington. We've had really cold weather. I'm just hoping we're gonna get some snow because I don't know. I'm of the philosophy that if it's going to be cold, then it might as well snow, because otherwise, what is the point? So, but we've got quite a cloudy, overcast day today, and it's just a little bit chilly. So I thought it would be good to wear this. And so that is what I'm wearing. Why don't we go ahead and just get into the nitty chat though. The first project that I showed you guys last time, which if you watched before, then you've already seen this, you're already familiar with this. This is the newest sock design that I'm working on. I was hoping to call it the crosshatch socks or something to that effect. But I've since written up the pattern and I sent it to my tech editor, and she immediately looked it up on Ravelry, which I didn't even think to like double check the name on Ravelry. And she said that there are, I guess, like 58 or so other patterns using the name crosshatch. So I am back to the drawing board on a name, which is kind of where I was last time as well. Tentatively, I'm calling these maybe like the woven hatch socks, but I don't know if I love that either. It's just, that's a very literal name. Like that is very literally what this is kind of like a woven crosshatch effect. And I'd love to be able to utilize that name somehow in the title of the pattern, but I also don't know if it really needs to be that literal. So I'm gonna keep thinking on a name for these guys. However, I think you already saw this. I think this was already finished last time I showed it. If you didn't see it before, then this is using the main color is Hazel Knits Artisan sock in the color in the navy. And then this contrast color, this speckled color, is Salty Blonde Fibers. It's her 2-ply sock from the Mean Girl collection, and the colorway is Burn Book. And I just absolutely love the two of these together. Sorry, there's cat hair always. But I just really love the two of these together. The blue of the navy in contrast with that pink and yellow speckle is so good. So I'm in love with this sock. I am desperate to knit the pair, but I am I am still waiting for yarn to finish this guy up. But in the meantime, I have knit a few other versions, well, like a couple other versions, including this guy, which, so I'm not gonna lie, this I was so excited about, still am really excited about, so jazzed about it, love it, think it's so fun, exciting. But now that I've knit this, I actually don't know which one I prefer. I don't know if I am Team Speckles or Team Fade. I love them both so much. But why don't I go ahead and chat about this guy? So just so you can see, it's not just one long tube. Well, I mean, it is one long tube right now, but I have put in waste yarn so that I can do an afterthought heel here. This one used a shadow wrap heel. In my patterns, I always include a shadow wrap heel and an afterthought heel, and I wanted to make sure I had an option that used an afterthought heel so you could see the difference between the two. And so I will be adding that heel soon just by ripping out the waste yarn and adding that in. An afterthought heel is super easy because it works in the same way as your wedge toe. It's the same exact construction, like it's literally the same instructions. You just do decreases along those edges. So I was really hoping to have this, at least the toe finished before I showed this off. But this day just has completely got away from me. And at this point, I'm just really hoping to film before all of my little dwindling daylight goes away. So this is what you get. As you can see, I've already moved over to my DPNs, which means I am very close to finishing the toe. I am, with my socks, I knit them on 9-inch circulars. That is just my preferred method. And then when I get down to a point where it is very small circumference, I switch to DPNs just because that just works best for me. I do enjoy Magic Loop, but I don't have success with Magic Loop on socks. For some reason, once I go down to like a fingering weight yarn, I get laddering no matter how much I tug at the second stitch, or, you know, I've tried all the techniques, but I still get some laddering that I don't love, and I would just rather, I really like the tension that I get with 9-inch circulars. Not to mention that I think that's the best method if you are doing color work, just because it helps to keep everything kind of evenly spaced, evenly tensioned, and you don't have to worry about those edges. So that's what's going on here. I will note with this pattern, this has been an interesting test for me because I've been reading a lot lately where people are recommending actually not to catch your floats with socks, like specifically with socks, because it can take away from the elasticity, which is definitely the case. A lot of that depends on how often you're catching floats. And I typically only recommend catching your floats about like past an inch, or sometimes I'll recommend like after every 6 stitches, if you are still on the same color, then catch your floats. I wouldn't do anything shorter than that because you will just have a very tight, it just won't have much give to it. And that's always worked really well for me. I've never had any issues with elasticity. But with this one, because of just the motif itself, and there were certain sections where, you know, it would go like 8 stitches or so between. And I don't know, I kind of wanted to try it out and see how it would go. And so I didn't catch my floats for either of these. And I have to say, this fits me beautifully. Like I will warn, like I trust my tension. I've done enough color work knitting on small circumference to where that doesn't, I'm very comfortable with it. And so it wasn't something I was too concerned about. I'll show you the inside out version so you can see my floats. You can see these are decently long. And so I am careful when I put my foot in. This is a tricky thing too, right? Like if I were knitting this for somebody else, like if I knit a version of these for Thomas, my husband, I don't know that I would leave a float this big, because I know when I'm putting my sock on to like be cognizant of where I put my toes. But you know, it's different when you're giving somebody else a sock, that you don't want them to have to think too much about what they're wearing. So at least for my version, I decided to just not catch my floats and see. And I mean, as you can see, it blocked out perfectly. I don't have any puckering or anything like that. And then it's plenty stretchy. Like I have absolutely no issues getting this on. So I'd be curious to hear your feedback on how often do you typically catch floats, and what is your experience with it? You know, it's something I like to recommend because I know, you know, it depends on where we are kind of in our color work journey too, because I know early days when I was doing color work, if I didn't catch my floats, I may not have known well enough how to like keep that tension even. And because I always, when I'm knitting in the round and when I'm knitting anything or in color work, doesn't matter if it's flat or in the round, every few stitches I will make sure to kind of tug out the stitches and stretch them a little bit. And then especially if I have a long float, once I've created that float, I will tug it again I would rather have a little bit of extra ease, because once everything is knit up, it's not really all that loose anymore, at least for me. But we all have different tension and gauge, right? So a lot of this is kind of like your mileage may vary. So with that in mind, I asked my tech editor about this, and I'm actually waiting for her response. I always put in a note with my color work socks. I give the recommendation about catching floats. And now I'm actually wondering if I want to give that recommendation for this pattern or not, just because I had a lot of success without catching floats, and I almost think that catching the floats on this would make it so much more tedious. So we're gonna see what she says on that, on whether or not I should keep that note in or remove it, because I'm not sure. And I did in my last video where I talked about this, somebody actually asked me about the floats, and I told her this was kind of like a do as I say, not as I do moment, because I hadn't caught them. But it was interesting to me to see a few more people are saying with socks to not catch your floats at all. Like I want to say Summer Lee might have said it in one of her recent videos, and then what is the other one? Is it Charlotte Stone? I had just watched her interview with the Fruity Knitting, and or fruity knitting, and she kind of said the same thing. So now I'm kind of rethinking whether or not that's something I should recommend. Anyway, long tangent, all to say that I did not catch my floats, and I'm very happy with the tension on these. I think the longest, at least for my size, which is a 64 stitches, I think the longest was 8 or 9 stitches in between. And that's not every round, it's every other round. It just depends on where you are with the horizontal bars. But anyway, if I didn't mention, because I don't remember if I mentioned or not, I don't think I did, this beautiful fade uses a bunch of different colors of KnitPicks Stroll. So if you watched last week, if you watched my video all about my stash, me organizing my stash, you might remember I had that giant pile of mini skeins, of like sock minis. And that was all of the minis that I bought from KnitPicks when they had their sale on their sets of minis. Like, you can actually buy mini sets in packs. And I thought it was a great way to have more options for color work, really, for stuff like this. And so I had put out an Instagram story actually asking you guys your opinion on what should be the next color I knit of this sock. And when I had put it up, I'd actually just given these colors as one of the options, which this is the one that won. And so I did that. And then once I got to here, I realized that I just wanted to keep going with colors instead of just repeating. And I had enough of a different color variety to where I was able to do that. And I think this made just a really nice clean fade. Like, I go from this very pale kind of aqua blue all the way down to sort of this like pumpkin orange. And hopefully the contrast is showing well here, because this is like a hot pink and this is more of a fuchsia. And so I love that I was able to do kind of a subtle color fade here. So this is using almost completely their mini skeins, with the exception of a couple of the 50-gram balls of Stroll. And when I put out this pattern and everything, I'll list all the colors that I use. So if you want to replicate it, you can. I will note though, something I found that was interesting. When I was looking for the colors on KnitPicks website, there are a couple of the minis that I used that I can't find on the normal Stroll listing. And one of them is this like minty green color. I got this in one of the sets. It might have been like a Timberline collection or something like that. But I could not find that green in their 50-gram balls. And I know that because I am obsessed with this color and I want more of it. And I was hoping to get more. And I don't know if maybe it's just out right now or if it's something where they have some colors that they only use in the mini sets. So I'm not sure, but I'm going to keep an eye on that. But I just think this made such a fun fade, and it's such a great way to use up your scraps. This hardly used anything at all. I haven't measured it yet, but I don't even know if this used 2 grams of the color in my size. So, and that's for a medium. But yeah, so I'll need to look into that and see if those colors are coming back or anything. But yeah, this is such a great way to use up stash. So technically all of this is 1 chart repeat, and this is half a chart repeat. And so I change the colors every half chart repeat. And it's only half the chart because, as you can see, it staggers and you need both of those so you get that effect. And so, yeah, I just changed out the color every half of the chart to achieve this really nice fade. And so this should be done by next time. And then I want to get started on the pair. So I actually do have a matching pair of these. That would be nice. It is with my tech editor right now. We are, I think it's pretty much good to go. We're just double checking a couple of things with the chart to make sure that it's good for all sizes. So that is actually a really good segue for me to show my third sample, which is more of a swatch than a sample. On that Instagram story where I was asking for feedback about which color combination I should do next, I also put this option up, and this is like an icy blue with a tonal purple. This is also KnitPicks Stroll. And so I was still kind of, this wasn't actually voted very highly on, but I was still kind of intrigued by it. So I wanted to try it out. And yeah, I don't think it's gonna win. Like, I actually don't mind it. I don't think it's bad, but I think the other two are just way more fun. But it worked out in that I had done this much and was thinking, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I won't frog it just in case, but I'll leave it. But then I was able to end up using the second portion to actually swatch out a couple of the other sizes. So when I made this chart motif, I made this with my size in mind, which is the medium 64 stitches. And I knew that it would work, at the very least, it also worked with the 80 stitch motif where it scaled up nicely and you got kind of the same effect of this motif. Where it got a little bit trickier was on the small and large sizes, which are the 56 stitch and the 72 stitch sizes, because, you know, the multiples change. And so you have to, the ratios change with how you're scaling these. And if I wanted to have it, so you can, if you look at this, you can see we've got 4 vertical lines and 4 horizontal lines. If I wanted to maintain that evenness of the vertical and the horizontal, the only way I was going to achieve that with the small and the large was to actually add an extra set of spacing around. So you would have 2 rows of negative space in between each of these motifs, and then 2 rows underneath and over top. So it became a very different looking motif because there's just way more negative space around these little squares, instead of it almost feeling like more of a cross-hatching sort of effect. And that's not what I wanted. So what I ended up having to do was adjust it to where for the small and the large, they will actually have a couple less bars of vertical, but the horizontal lines stay the same. So the horizontal line stays the same amount as here, but then you go from 4 bars to 3 bars in the color itself. And that allowed me to shift it to where it still looks like the motif. And then in between each, you still get kind of that like window painting effect of that solid line of negative space between it. And from far away, I think it still reads the same. I think this was the best option for feeling like it still reads like the same exact sort of cross-hatching motif without giving too much away or changing too much of the pattern itself. So if you are interested in test knitting these socks, definitely check out my show notes below. I will have a link to a form in there where you can apply to test for me. Also, definitely subscribe to my newsletter because I will always send out an email when I'm doing a call for testers. That way, if you end up seeing this video a few days later, it doesn't matter because you will have gotten my test call in the newsletter. So definitely subscribe to my newsletter, which is also down below. I think these are really fun. I really enjoyed knitting them. I also think they knit up super fast just because you're constantly excited to get to the next set of motifs, especially when you're changing colors. Now, I will warn you, and you probably already know, that if you are doing something where you are changing the colors every time, what that means is you're gonna have a whole lot of ends to weave in, so be okay with that. And if you don't like weaving in ends, then maybe just stick with 2 colors. And I will also say, if you don't like weaving in ends, I think that's one thing that's really great about the shadow wrap heel, is that you knit that kind of in tandem, so you're not breaking yarn to do that. Whereas with the afterthought heel, obviously I will be picking that up and going in later, so that is another set of ends to weave in. But you know, they both have their pros and cons. The nice thing about an afterthought heel is you can save it till the end, and you can put it in whenever, and you can easily swap it out if you know, walk through your heels a lot. So yeah, definitely check that out if you are interested, and hopefully next time this will be finished. Okay, last up on my list, this is my sweater design that I was working on. I was very early stages when I showed it off last time. I think it was actually, I don't even think I'd split for sleeves yet. I had just done the yoke, or maybe I had just split the sleeves. Maybe that's what I did. Yeah, because I had blocked it to make sure that the yoke depth was good and that all the increases were good and all of that. I had to make some minor adjustments to adjust for length, and then everything was good to go. So since then, look at that, we are making really good progress. Unfortunately, it already has a fold line, man, and I just blocked this again, but it's okay, it happens. It's gonna be blocked a third time, so it's not a big deal. Also, my best advice always, when in doubt, block it out. So I had done a halfway block to make sure that the yoke depth was good, and then I went ahead and knit the rest of the body, and especially with ribbing, and not just ribbing, but broken rib, it's so tough to tell how it's going to look without blocking it, because ribbing when you've just knit it up, it just always looks so crunchy, and it always looks really tight. And so I just feel like it's never an accurate representation of how it's going to be. And so because of that, this project has required several blocks and will continue to require more. Fortunately, the body is done. All I have to do is block it. As you can see, it is on barber cords, because I got to the point where I thought the length was good, but I needed to make sure. And it did in fact grow even a little more than I expected. Now the yarn I am using is Blue Sky Fibers Skyland, which is a DK weight yarn, and it's in the colorway Nightfall. And this is a really nice yarn. It is, what is it? It's 40% wool, 30% alpaca, and 30% silk. So it's got a really nice sheen to it, but it's also got a nice halo. So it gives you that really fuzzy effect, but it also gives you that kind of nicer look with the silk. And I'm really enjoying knitting with it. It gives you a ton of drape too. I mean, between the alpaca and the silk, it's a bit of a heavy garment, but I think it's playing really nicely with the broken rib. I think that texture is just dreamy. I mean, look at the way that sways. It's not stiff at all, which is exactly what you want for something like this with so much ribbing, especially because one of the things I was a little bit nervous about, and another reason why I wanted to block it again before binding off, was that, so you can see I have got this raglan detail that carries from the twisted rib from the collar. And I really wanted that to run all the way down the body. And so I have it continue, and then I also add a little bit of that broken rib detail in between, under the arms, so on the sides, as kind of a nice detail for the sides of your garment. And I used to have this jacket many years ago. I think it was from Express. It was like a faux leather jacket. It was like this faux leather brown jacket. It had these cute little zippers, and it had these panels on the sides that were fabric, and it was ribbed fabric. And I don't know why, like, I don't know that that's something I ever would have thought I would like, but that was hands down my favorite jacket. I loved it so much. I wore it until it literally fell apart. And when I was working on this and knowing that I wanted to carry that ribbing detail, I was just thinking about how fun it would be to have some sort of a ribbing panel on the sides that was kind of the same sort of effect as that. And so I did this, and it was very much kind of an experiment to see if I would like it, how it would look bulky, or would it look nice? What kind of effect would it give on the side of the body? How would it play with shaping? And as I was knitting it, right around the end, like it was fine all throughout, but right near the end where it started to hit my hips, it was starting to kind of do like a little bit of a pucker. Like the fabric wasn't doing anything weird, but it was kind of just doing like a little boop. And that's when I started to get a little bit nervous, because I was like, ugh, what I don't want is for there to be like a weird pucker or bubble effect when this is on the body, because it's not what you want. But I also couldn't completely tell because it was still on my needles, which was a little bit tight and cinching around my hips. And on top of that, it wasn't blocked yet. And again, ribbing before you've blocked it looks crazy. And so I knew that all I could do was just block it and see how it was gonna look. And then from there, make a decision. And man, did this change so much with blocking. This became so incredibly drapey. It doesn't have that memory with like a wool would have. And on top of that, the ribbing kind of opened up a little bit, which is to be expected with blocking. It's why you absolutely have to block your garments. The effect of the texture of the fabric changes completely. Like it completely changes the nature of how it sits on your body. And so now I have the amount of ease that I wanted because, like I was saying before, it was sitting quite tight on my frame at that point because you've got this ribbing that's very stiff and crunchy. But now it's quite loose and drapey. I wanted there to be some ease in this so it was flowy, because you don't want a stiff garment, like a ribbed garment that's kind of like constricting you in that way. And there's absolutely no puckering. The way that this hangs is so nice. It's just a beautiful drape. It created such a beautiful shape. I want to share photos, but obviously it's in a place right now where it at least needs to be, I at least need to do the bind off before I can show you how it sits on my body. But just know that I am super happy with it. Maybe, you know what? Maybe I'll switch into it. Let's just see really quick. Okay, I am back. I figured I was talking so much about this, I should probably just at least try it on and show you how it looks right now. Keep in mind, it's not bound off, and I've got it on a barber cord right now, so there is a little bit of rippling and waving happening, but this is how we're looking. This is the side detail. I'm hoping that's showing up. It's quite dark in my viewfinder, but normally it shows up okay, so I'm just going to assume that it's going to show up okay. But this is how it's looking. I am really happy with this. It's just, the drape is exactly what I was going for. The amount of ease is good. It's light. I'm getting stuck on my barber cords. But it feels really good. Like it just feels really good on the body. And obviously we will be doing long sleeves. I have some ideas on how I want to carry up that ribbing underneath. I haven't fully decided yet, so I will be kind of making decisions as I cast on, or as I pick up the stitches for the sleeves. So that will be kind of a stay tuned and see what happens sort of vibe. But also what's funny is that just by sitting in this and trying it on, I've realized that I actually really like the idea of a short sleeve version. So I think I want to do a short sleeve version of this in a cotton or a cotton merino of some sort. I think that would be really nice. So that's something I'm thinking about too. Especially because it has a lot of positive ease, at least for me. I don't typically do a huge amount of positive ease, but I do like a little bit of positive ease. And I felt like in a garment like this, you wanted a little bit of extra positive ease, so it's just kind of loose and flowy. So yeah, that's where this is at. I'm feeling really, really excited about this one. I think it's gonna be a good one. I'm excited to pick up the stitches for the sleeves. I've been a little busy with the sock, just trying to get the charts going and get the pattern to my tech editor. So I've had to take a few days off of this, but I am anxious to get this back on my needles and do the bind off and then pick up the sleeves, and hopefully the idea I have in my mind for what I'm gonna do with the sleeve I like, and then I can just kind of like hit the ground running and it'll be smooth sailing from there. So that is my knitting progress for this week, really the last couple of weeks. And yeah, I imagine that next time we'll be starting to see some things wrapping up, which is exciting, but no pressure on this. I don't want to put too much pressure on myself in case I need to kind of rethink the sleeves a little bit. But this is moving along at a pace I'm really comfortable with, really happy with, and the pattern is basically written up to the point of the sleeves. I've written everything and double checked the math on that, so it all looks good. So once I get those sleeves knit up, then I'm kind of ready to get this pattern into tech editing, and then, you know, once we get that taken care of, I can do a test call for this as well. Now this is one of my projects as a Blue Sky maker for the year. So it's one of my designs for them for the year. And so this won't actually be coming out until July. But that just means we've got plenty of time for testing, which I think is very important. That's why I did it so early. I want to make sure that we've got plenty of time for testing in all the sizes, that everybody can get their yarn and all of that. So stay tuned for more information on that. But that's really it for me in terms of knitting. All I've got left to talk about is just my book chat for the last couple of weeks, just because I haven't talked about it in a little bit. So when I chatted with you guys last time, the book I was reading was The Good Sister by Gillian McAllister. That is not a book I can recommend. Now, it was not a bad book. It was very well written. It was a very interesting story, but it was just way too heavy for me. It's basically a murder trial about a baby and how it broke apart a family, and I just found that to be way too heavy. I think, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world, and I just like to think of my reading as an escape. And so I like to keep it kind of light and happy when I can. I don't mind heavier reads. I don't mind deep thinking, but murder trial about a baby is really not what I'm looking for. You know, that just wasn't hitting the mark on what I wanted. So that's just why I wouldn't recommend the book. It's just a downer, really. Like, there's really no happy ending. You know, the outcome is maybe not what you would fully expect, but also kind of what you're hoping for. But at the end of the day, it's still a really terrible outcome. So just, you know, kind of a bummer to read. And so I decided after finishing that book that I just needed to do a complete reversal and just find maybe like the happiest, easiest, lightest read that I could, that was available right away for me to read from my library. And that is a novel love story by Ashley Poston? I'm not sure how you say her last name. My friend had actually recommended this to me a while ago. It's just like a fun, bubbly little happy read. And it is actually quite a fun read so far. I think I'm about halfway through at this point. I don't want to give anything away, so I'm not going to say much about it, except to say the protagonist, she loves to read. She enters this town, and all I'm going to say is that it's sort of giving me the Truman Show vibes. Hopefully not in quite as dark a manner as the Truman Show ended up being, but just that sort of idea, that sort of theme. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say anything else because I'm still trying to figure out exactly what's going on. And I don't really want to give any more away, but it is very light. It's very fun. And, you know, some rough things have happened in her life that she's moving on from, but it's all about like her next phase in life. So I'm really enjoying that read so far. And it's exactly kind of what I was looking for after coming off such a heavy read. So that's all I've got for my book updates. And yeah, I think that's it for me this week. We'll see what this looks like when I go to edit this, if the lighting is terrible or if this works out okay. It's feeling very dark in here right now, so I'm hoping on screen it won't be quite so bad. But let me know what you thought about me filming in here as compared to my usual filming spot. I might go back to filming down there next week. I'm not entirely sure, so we will see. If you are interested in testing the sock pattern for me, please definitely take a look at the form below. And also just know that I try to shuffle through testers as best as I can. I try to get a good mix. So if you don't get picked, it doesn't mean that I didn't like you or that I didn't want to pick you. It's just, I can only pick so many for each size while trying to maintain a good balance of a variety of knitting styles, knitting backgrounds, how long you've been knitting. All of those factors come into play in terms of skill level, the type of knitting that you normally do, the type of colors you're typically using in terms of color palette. I just try and have a really good range so that when I put out my pattern and you look at the pages or the projects on Ravelry, you can really see a good range of how this will look in different colors, sizes, techniques, people who are beginners doing this versus somebody who has been knitting for 20 years. I just think it's really important to have all of that variety. Also, just to make sure that you can understand my pattern okay, and that everything is clear, that it makes sense, and it knits up the way that you are hoping for. So yeah, definitely take a look at the form below if you would like to test knit. Otherwise, I will chat with you guys more next week. Thank you so much for sticking around if you stayed until this point. If you would like to get in touch with me, I am meeshyfrazz on Instagram and Ravelry, and also now on Blue Sky. I only have one post on there, but you know, I'm working on it. I am also meeshyfrazz@gmail.com, and you can find me at my blog, which is meeshyfrazzknits.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.